That's what it's supposed to sound like. I don't know if it's going to happen when I get into the middle of that song. Let me tell you what's going on here and why I've been a little delinquent on new lessons lately. What is it? It's Thursday, December 4th. And I've been playing a lot lately, the last few weeks. You may, if you've been following every move, had some wrist problems that I think were related to the pounding. Oh, I shouldn't even do that. The pounding I was doing working on the lesson for Angie. But about 3 weeks ago, the thread came up about things that seemed impossible. And that, but also that kind of combined, I guess, with my recent resurgent interest in ragtime and resurrecting some, and then writing a couple ragtime tunes, The Good Life and Pumpkin Pie, got me back on working on a couple of Scott Joplin tunes that I have just always loved, but never been quite happy with. One of them, Bethina, that had parts in it that I was convinced were absolutely impossible. I'll save that topic for a different day, because that also got me working on another one of the most beautiful tunes I've ever heard. And I used to play a version of this. There were a lot of parts in it I was not happy with. It was somebody else's arrangement that I'd found on a Kicking Mule album, Jim McLennan, but anyway, not parts I wasn't happy with, but parts I thought could be improved on. Unfortunately, all those improvements made it much harder. And so that was another one that I kind of filed away thinking, I don't know, not worth it. And so for the last 3 weeks, I think it's been about 3 weeks since that thread went up, I have been driving people in my house nuts with just working on these same two songs, Bethina and Heliotrope Bouquet. Now, Heliotrope was, the first two parts are by another composer, Chauvin, and they're pretty different sounding than Joplin parts, and the third and fourth parts were added by Scott Joplin to preserve part of Louis Chauvin's memory, and because he didn't really write anything down, but is well regarded as one of the most talented of the sound. It seemed like he could sit down and improvise rags on the spot that were spectacular. This one wasn't so improvised. It was a little bit more worked out. And as I got back to working on it a few weeks ago, I found all kinds of improvements. I kind of went back to the original, to this book. I don't know if I too much glare here, but let's see, because it's all Joplin's pieces. And here is the section that starts about Heliotrope Bouquet, and here we have piano music. Luckily, the key that it's in here, which is G, worked out to be a good key for it to do on the guitar. So I started piecing together my own arrangement, whittled it down to five pages. Why do I have, oh yeah, there we go, 5 pages. And now have been practicing it with a lot of things that I consider improvements in it. Let me get that out of the way, just in case I need this. Because there are now about 3 or 4 or 5 sections, little parts, just a couple measures at a time, that are still sticking with me, making it difficult, and parts I maybe get anxious about when they're coming up. This is one of them. This is a part that there are some very pianistic moves in here that don't lend themselves very well to the guitar. And I've decided to go ahead and try to get some of those in on the guitar. One of them is an octave part. We'll get to that later. That's the 4th section. Another is diminished chords in octaves as well that just don't lend themselves very well to the guitar either. And usually this type of thing might be simplified to something like, there we go, just 3 bass notes. But I thought, let's try to take this to another ridiculous level and have the bass notes double up too. That was really lucky, because that's what it was supposed to sound like. Now, Fred was here the other day, and we started talking about some of these kinds of things that need thousands of reps. And that's one of the things I was telling him, is that when you come to a part that is really difficult, isolate it and do it thousands of times. And that's what I've been doing with this. Not good enough. Try to think ahead. Okay, 6 quick pinches. Missed one. And once it starts getting, once it's improving a little bit, first of all, you can practice it at different speeds. I can do this slowly. Oh, he says. That's what I'm trying to do. Now it has to follow a fairly simple measure. Now the next part's really easy. But this part that happens at the end of the 3rd section is still a sticking point. And I can be playing through the song from the beginning and it is just feeling like gold. And when it comes to that part, it's still a crapshoot. So sometimes I play through the song from beginning to end hoping that it's going to work out. And other times I'll just sit there and do this as many times as I have to. And sometimes it starts getting worse. Those all some pretty good ones. Okay, I'm probably driving you nuts with this. Let me show you a little bit about what else is going on with the song. Well, this will be a work in progress. It's kind of a 3 or 4 week checkup on where this tune is, because what I would like to do, I eventually may get around to a lesson on this, but I would like to get a really good recording of it up there as a future acoustic snapshot that people might enjoy. Okay, so having said all that, I'm going to check my tuning first because we're in a weird weather situation here. And of course I have all the doors and windows open as always. And I have dead strings. That's another thing. When I do a real version of this, I'll have newer strings on this guitar. All right, let's see what we have. We have a nice little intro. getting there. There were some things in there I really liked, some little just mental glitches, because the couple of places where things got tripped up were spots I don't usually mess up. So I'm feeling good about that. Because of brushing up on that really, the part that I think is the biggest tripping point, the first time it came out exactly the way it was supposed to. And that made me mess up just a minute afterwards, or a few seconds, because I was so thrilled with the fact that it's possible and I can get it sometimes. And I got it in the midst of the song, which it's different when you're working on a hard part like that and doing it over and over and over, because then and even if you get it to where you're getting it maybe 80% right, incorporating it into the performance, let's say, or I hate to call that a performance, but into a full run through, top to bottom, dress rehearsal, is a whole different thing as well, because you can't be that mentally focused on just that one little part, because you have all kinds of other things happening in real time. And so it's really important to build up the muscle memory in there so that a section like that starts requiring less brain power. Not as good right there. Now my hand's getting tired probably, and my brain is tired too, because I'm starting to talk about stuff that I normally wouldn't be interrupting a practice session to chat. There we go. Then back. Oh, so where I was going with this is play that part over and over and over, and then back up a little bit, and then try to make it happen in context of maybe just the measure before, which is what I was doing back at the top of this segment. Okay, that's what that's supposed to sound like. Great. Now though, if I go back to the beginning of that section, which section is that? Oh, that's where, yeah, it was the beginning of the repeat of that section where I totally spaced out because I was so excited about the fact that that part came out really good. And then in the repeat of that, it sucked. But, so that whole, now the whole C section. Easy yet, but it's improving, and it has been again, I have probably done that at least 500 times in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Persistence or stupidity, I'm not sure, but in any case, it has the song is really starting to take shape, and I feel like I'm getting the mechanical parts and the technical parts down, and then I can start working on the interpretive parts, making it artistic, deciding how slowly I want to in the start, the first section. I want to do it with a little more beat. That feels a little too fast, but a lot of people play this with more of that type of pacing. I really like the slower jazzy approach, especially to the first section. Even some breathing. Now we'll build up here. leads into the second section, needs a little more life. Then a little delay. Now those little parts were also really tricky for me to get down. And I think when I played through it a second ago, the first one of these was really bad. I wasn't ready for it, partly because this really quick double hammer-on that happens one time like this, D to E, D to D sharp to E, into a G chord. I found that if I did that quickly and then tried to slap down the G chord, it was terrible. So I had to prep the chord and get the G chord ready to go. This is a weird little mental thing. I had to get the G chord ready to go so that it's already there. So I come out of this, let me think. And these were already there. So now all I have to do is play what's already on the guitar. Oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like. Now there's another one. This one is D to E to F sharp, and then the top notes of a G chord. All you need is the top 3 strings, a G on the 3rd fret. And I was thinking, I was trying to do the same thing. Well, I learned a lesson from the first one. If I did this quick hammer on and then slammed that down, it sounded terrible. But if I got it there so it was ready to play and all I had to do was do the quick hammer on and the notes are right there, it's all in the right hand, it would sound great. It's still a mental block. It's kind of like learning to do a hammer on and hitting a bass note at the same time is a very similar technique that just messes with your mind. And that's what was going on there. It was just weird to put this chord down but not play it until I've done the hammer on. And then coming in with a little descending series of chords. As I recall, when I played through it a few minutes ago, the first one of these was terrible because I didn't have the chord down. I went into the hammer on and then it didn't come out clean because I wasn't used to playing it without my finger on the G. So that's what that one was supposed to sound like. Then we're into the 3rd line. And the same first hammer on. Talk about this part, but I'm still toying with different ways of fingering the next set of 3 chords, and I keep missing that one. That's the way I tried to do it. And that's another part that still needs a little isolated practice. That's what it's supposed to sound like. But I also looked just yesterday at ways of doing it up here. Let me think. What was I doing? Oh, yeah. And so that chord was the same. There we go. Then I had to decide whether I like the sound of these 2 notes, the D and the C, on those strings where they're brighter or on the lower strings the deadness of these strings. Of course, new strings might help too. Like the brightness of this, it made the next change though more difficult. So I'm still messing with, do I want to go like this or this? Like the sound of the first of that one better. It's just easier to miss. Anyway, then it ends. I'm toying with the idea of changing this. The D where I've got the melody up on the high strings, or buried in the middle strings further up the neck. I'm not sure I like that. Especially don't like the wrong notes. So I still missed one of those double quick hammer-ons. Now, it didn't come out too badly, but I wasn't ready on the G. I lucked out. Just a lot to think about. Okay, I've probably gone on way too long about what's going on with Heliotrope Bouquet. The third section, though, has some beautiful stuff in it. Changing from an F major to an F minor in the middle of the bass and melody doing something else. Hear this. Little descending half step happening in the middle of all kinds of other things going on. Nice, huh? Second time around it's a little different. It happens later, so I had to refinger that F chord from my first and second fingers to my first and third. Then a part I just put together a couple days ago, so oh no, this part I've close. Missed one of the bass notes, but that's okay. And this ending I love. Getting into the fourth section. Okay, that is kind of what I'm doing this morning, is practicing Heliotrope Bouquet out here in the cabin where we've had a bunch of days of rain, and so it's very wet outside, but finally, and lots of trees blew over and stuff like that, ripped up sheds outside, a bunch of wet shirts hanging out there now. So, but I hope you enjoyed kind of eavesdropping in here, kind of fly on the wall at a practice session, and some of the things that run through my head and hands as I'm working on things. Maybe probably not later today, but maybe in the very near future, I will get to the same type of run through of Bethina. So I also encourage. I think I played a little of this. Yeah, I did. But it had another. I gotta stop. Okay, I'm signing off, but I'm gonna show you the impossible part of Bethina. See. That's what it's supposed to sound like. It's getting there. Okay, enough for today. So, hope you enjoyed this little, again, like I mentioned, maybe fly on the wall practice session, and can carry over some of the thoughts or the processes into whatever you're working on. And I'll be back in maybe another couple of weeks with the polished version that should go exactly the way I want every time I play it. Not likely. There's always a little bit of an element of randomness to any particular performance. So, okay, that's it for today.